We start with breaking news unfolding in the United States. Chaos, violence, fire and looting unfolding on the streets of Minneapolis. Protesters right now are rioting over the death of an unarmed black man in police custody. We'll go straight to our correspondent Tim Avia, who's been in the middle of all this chaos all morning. Tim, you've had a tough few hours. Authorities are very worried about what's going to happen when it turns dark. Do you sense things are about to escalate?
Yeah, and we've just had someone throw a flare or a firework into the crowd, sent people scattering there. But as you can see, they've set this car on fire. There's been a few significant developments since we last spoke. The mayor has declared a state of emergency here in Minneapolis to deal with what is unfolding. Having said that, still there's no sign of any police here, and everyone is just acting without fear as they go around rioting, looting, doing whatever they feel like. The other thing is we heard reports, and the local prosecutor from Minnesota came out and said that there was other evidence that would not support a criminal charge against those 4 officers involved in the death of George Floyd. Now, since then, after that, 90 minutes later, he released a statement saying he misspoke. So clearly, authorities are still looking at that case. Obviously, fears about what the crowds here would do once they heard that news. So that is the latest situation, what we have. We were also told all those 4 officers have invoked their Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. Now, people are firing fireworks into the crowd. That is why you're seeing people disperse. If you look over here, there are still people looting the stores, carrying goods out from all these shops that are around. So that's the situation. As we said this morning, for people who haven't seen, there was a very violent altercation when a man was stabbed by another man. Then police had to come in. It took them about 20 minutes to come out and try to get these people out to hospital. They were set upon by the crowd, who threw bricks, they threw rocks, they threw whiskey bottles, and the police responded with stun grenades and tear gas, eventually managing to get out. The situation now, though, is the crowd is sort of just in a lull as night sets here. There is still an air of expectancy that things are going to continue throughout this evening. Protesters have told us this city will continue to burn until those 4 police officers are charged, but that is going to take quite some time before that happens. So it's going to be a very long night here in Minneapolis.
Tim, catch your breath. We're going to stay with your pictures there because it's really quite extraordinary. For viewers who aren't aware of the detail behind this story, George Floyd was arrested by 4 police officers earlier this week. When he was arrested, a police officer put his knee to his throat. George Floyd screamed that he couldn't breathe and he passed out. A few hours later, he died in hospital. Those 4 police officers have been sacked, but there are now questions about whether they should face criminal charges. There's a lengthy racial history here in Minnesota, and particularly in Minneapolis. And where Tim is right now at the moment, you can see that the tension and the escalation and the emotion is just extraordinary. There's a lot of police anger at the moment. And Tim, are you seeing any police officers on the ground at all? There is talk as well of the National Guard being called in.
No, there are no police here at all. Before, the police station's just over here. There were armed police on the roof before, but they've now disappeared. And the crowd, as you can see, they are not concerned at all about any unlawful activity. Now, there's different elements to this crowd. We are seeing a lot of people, particularly over at the police station, being very peaceful protesters. They are really upset about, obviously, what happened to George Floyd. There are many people also who are upset about what's happened, but are acting a lot more, they're letting out their anger a lot more than the other people who are being quite peaceful. There is also a small element here who are just here to cause some trouble. They're the ones primarily who are doing a lot of the looting, a lot of the stealing, and we don't know why they set this car on fire. Everyone we've spoken to said, it just felt like a good idea at the time. There's no one actually knows why it's been set on fire, but there are plenty of people here getting pretty angry at this point. And the anger has really grown ever since that stabbing incident, which took place a couple of hours ago. Since then, that's when the mood of the crowd has intensified a lot. There was a bit of a lull earlier this afternoon when things sort of quietened down a bit, but that is no longer happening. And now the looting is still going on. You're still seeing people wheel out goods from the shops. It's hard to believe there's anything actually left in there.
Tim, we have some vision and a bit of what happened about an hour or 2 hours ago when you were live, when we saw rocks thrown at a police car. We saw a man stabbed. We'll just try and get our control room to get that bit of information ready so we can play it to our viewers of what happened around 2 hours ago. You were caught in the middle of that, but just talk us through what happened.
Yeah, so it all started, as we drove into this car park here just near the police station, we could hear a man screaming, and we looked over and there was a brawl breaking out, and you can see that guy had gone down, he'd been stabbed. There was another man who allegedly, here we go, something's happening now. Seeing a few explosions come from that car. We've already seen the petrol tank and all the tyres explode, but someone's saying here with their fireworks they're throwing into the car now. You can see all sorts of things are being thrown on there to keep this inferno going. So going back to this morning, we saw that man stabbed. The alleged attacker was apprehended by another man at gunpoint, and he was kept there until police arrived. It took police about 20 minutes to actually come in. They were very fearful about approaching the situation given the level of distrust between the people here and those police. So eventually they came in and they were under fire. As soon as those officers came in, they were having objects hurled at them, projectiles hurled at them. They fired guns, fired stun grenades and tear gas to get everyone back, and when that happened they carried the injured people limply into the back of police cars and then retreated down the street.
It was a murder.
And they were retreated down the street under attack from the crowd who were throwing rocks at them, throwing everything. As they did that, police fired stun guns out the window, but they didn't stop to try to arrest anyone. So that's the situation here. You see by the people coming around us and yelling at us. Excuse me, sir. There's a lot of people here getting quite upset and emotional. They're not trying to threaten us at all, but they really want to get their message across. And they really want to put their point forward. They're more yelling at the camera as opposed to being aggro at us. But just a lot of anger, a lot of emotion here on the streets, Davina.
Okay, Tim, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Meanwhile, hundreds of protesters are marching on the streets of Los Angeles. Let's go to our correspondent, Alexis Daish. Lexi, what's it like there?
Davina, we're outside LAPD headquarters in downtown Los Angeles. And look, obviously, relative to Minneapolis, things are pretty peaceful here. But they have these barricades here. You can see the police have formed a line here to hold the line because they pushed this barricade down a little earlier. And look, they have been chanting, and obviously you can feel the passion and the anger, even though it is, as I said, a lot more peaceful than Minneapolis. These police here, I'm told, behind this line, the police chief of Los Angeles is actually here and keeping an eye on what is going on, as is all these protesters. You can see people have been actually talking to the media. I'm just going to get some distance here. People have been actually, you can see the crowds here approaching the media, and I must say, getting a bit antagonistic. We're here obviously just covering, what their views are and their protest, and they've been turning on us. I must say, I've been called a white supremacist and asked why I'm here. So there is some agitation, there is a lot of passion, but I think most importantly what this demonstrates is that this is an issue and a very sensitive political issue that the entire country here in the US is very passionate about. There is a history, particularly in Minnesota, of police killings. And you can tell here in California, people are really upset about this as well, as they are in New York. We've seen protests there today. We saw protests in Memphis overnight. So this really is a country united in their demands for answers, Davina. As I said, things are a bit more peaceful here, but certainly you can feel the passion and the anger amongst them.
Okay, Lexi, we'll let you go. Stay safe. Thank you.